Hi, I'm Troy. I was the best of Lee Sin at Hartford Regional Qualifier. Um, this was my second best of Lee Sin, and I'll be showing you guys my deck. So this was the deck list that I played um, this weekend. Overall, I was very happy with where I ended up. Uh, I didn't really get to this iteration of the deck until maybe like a week and a half before the tournament. I was kind of still on the list that I was running in Atlanta. However, the innovation from set three cards such as Scuttle Crab, Feyfolk, Nidalee, and Rengar, um, that package is just very strong, and I wanted to incorporate it into my Lee Sin, so I did some testing, and I was very happy with the results. Um, so as for the deck, Lee Sin Legend, pay one a buff. Um, Pretty good effect. Not as good as maybe like Master Yi, but definitely not an ability that people should scoff at. One might is can be the difference between winning a combat and not winning a combat. So definitely a strong effect. Um, our rune split was 7-5, 7 orange, 5 calm runes. Um, Definitely needed the extra orange in this deck because you're going to be using orange power like very early on, as early as turn two with Nidalee or our Rengar. And we're also running three punch first, which is very heavy on our orange runes. Um, as for our battlefields, we're running Monastery Farana and Emperor's Dais and Star Spring. These three battlefields were very good for me this weekend, and they synergize very well with the deck. And I'll go in more details later um, on my choices for matchups and um, play draw strategies. Um, for our chosen champion, it was Lee Sin Centered. This is probably not the best chosen champion in the game, but it's definitely not the worst, just because it's a 6 for 6 that we can develop without a power. But typically, we're using it as our closer, where we use him to just overload a battlefield with a bunch of might and close out the game. But with this list, my list is very fast, and it's very hard to be able to like cast him as a 7 energy accelerate to close out the game because typically you're gonna have a lot more powerful plays to use your 7 energy with. So um, yeah, didn't really play him that much in my games unless I really had to. Um, but yeah, 3 on guard. This spell was very powerful for me. It's probably my best pump spell in the deck, and I'll explain why. Um, it's better than discipline in this deck, and it's because we're running 3 costed or odd costed cards such as Nidalee and Rengar. So when we do curve out our Rengar going third, I don't know, turn three or Nidalee on turn two, we're holding up 1 up for our on guard. Um, so it's just another pump spell to help win combats, and it just kind of makes sense with our curve. 3 charm. This is just a very powerful card. Not much to be said. It synergizes very well with our Nidalee, which helps us draw more cards after we charm in one of their units and remove them. Um, just a very powerful card. 3 Defy. Not much to explain here. This card is just a 3 of in every green deck. Just counters many signature spells in the meta or just many other cards that you want to be defined with with characters like Irelia and Diana running around. You definitely need 3 Defy. Um, 1 Sabo main. Um, Sabotage is just such a powerful effect. Definitely needed. Um, it's just a 1 of in our deck just because it's hard to fit. and we don't really want to see multiple. Um, but yeah, this very powerful effect, very needed in a lot of the control matchups or matches where you want to take out one of their key spells, such as like Arise and Azir. And it's also, I think, really good into other orange decks where you want to be playing around punch first, and you know, trading up into taking their punch first is very powerful. So that was an innovation um, that one of my teammates helped me conclude that I should bring in sabotage against orange. So I was able to take out punch first quite a bit this weekend, and that was very helpful for me. Um, yep, and yep, three punch first, very powerful card. You should never cut this card to less than three. This card is just so good. Um, casting this card multiple times, casting this card just wins you the game. Casting it even like multiple times just wins you the game. It's just such a good card. Um, it's just such a blowout card. So uh, very powerful deck, and it's probably why you play orange to begin with. Three discipline, just a staple in green. Uh, Not much to say here. It's just a pump that replaces itself. Very powerful. Um, and then getting to our first key unit, which is our irresistible Fae Folk. Um, when you move to a battlefield, you may move an enemy unit here. I think it says, or to this battlefield. Uh, Basically, it's just a charm with the body. But that just is super powerful with our deck because we're running a lot of ambush units and a lot of pump spells. So we're basically putting a lot of pressure on the board when we do play this unit early on. Um, Threatening, charming their first unit that they play is just a lot of pressure that they have to deal with. Um, Too Lonely Pora. This is our last two drops to correct because we're only running 8 2 drops. You could put this number up to 3. Um, However, it was very hard to fit this weekend as I wanted to fit everything that I wanted in this deck. So I decided to only play 8 2 drops, which wasn't super an issue this weekend. I think I only had one match where I really bricked on the 2 drops. Um, but yeah, 3 Scuttle Crab. This is just a broken card that they released and unleashed. It's synergizes very well with our deck, especially with our Nidalee, where we can push into a battlefield um, and play Nidalee on top, so we can actually get into a battlefield and play Nidalee. It also just it's just very efficient. It just replaces itself. It draws a card. It synergizes very with our battlefields, and um, hand information is just makes the game so much easier. So you can perfectly play around whatever you, or at least play around the cards that you can, because you have perfect information. Two Zonias. Two Zonias is we cut to two Zonias because it's kind of hard to fit. My best of list was running 3. Um, it is a very powerful effect, but we really only want to be hiding it when we do have Rengar or Irelia out on the field, and sometimes with Nidalee. Um, so we don't really want to see too many of these, just because if you do see a lot of these and you're just playing them, and it sometimes in this meta you're just getting star-crossed, so sometimes your units doesn't even die, so it can be a little awkward. Um, but yeah, typically you're hiding this card after playing Rengar, and that pretty much can win you the game on the spot, just because they have to deal with Rengar and then also deal with him on the clapback. So very good card. 2 challenge. This card, I wanted 2 challenge in the deck. I was testing one, um, but I think it's very important to have against the Irelia and Diana matchup, because you want to be challenging their Stellacorn and the Hui, and you don't want to be charming them because you're gonna give them a draw or a move trigger. So challenge is just very strong to those decks. But it does cost two, so it's not as good as charm in that regard. So we do have two. We only play two. It also synergizes with Aurelia, but we're only playing two Aurelia in this deck, so um, I was happy with two, but you could cut to one and maybe move one of them to the sideboard, but it is very tight. We're playing three first mate. Um, Not much to say here. This card is super broken. Um, Super broken with our battlefields with Dias and Starspring, and even Monastery is just very good. So we can always keep conquering each turn. Um, but yeah, this card is just super broken. I would never cut any of them, any amount of first mates in my deck. I'm playing three Nidalee. I talked about Nidalee early on with how it synergizes with our deck. But this card is just really good. It's really overstated. Sometimes awkward to play on turn one on the draw because it does cost a power, or playing it as a 4-drop or in our deck. But typically it's fine because we're just running such low costed spells that deramping in the early game is not as bad. And also just having, 4 to 5 might just come down super early on is just very powerful and just gets you on the board very quickly. 2 Aurelia Fervent. This card isn't doesn't really synergize too much with our deck other than just the pump spells. It's kind of just a standalone unit that we can develop, and um, it's a card that we really want to see in certain matchups because the deflect and the amount of might that it can possibly get to is just very powerful. So like into decks like Master Yi or Vex, um, decks with Vex Apathetic, you want to be seeing this because you want to be developing and like threatening to break holds after it untaps. So um, definitely a card that you don't want to leave without in the deck. We run one in the sideboard because there's if you do run against like a Vex deck, you probably don't want to run 3 Rengar, and you want to bring in the extra Irelia. So, um, and then our last card in our main deck is 3 Rengar. I mean, not much to say here. Everyone has played set 3. This card is broken. It's just a mini dead balloon that costs 5 energy, and it's 6 might. So we're just playing overstated units, and then we're making our overstated units just even more overstated with our Lee Sin Legend, which does matter a ton because um, when you're playing decks other than Master Yi, you're typically going to be 1 might over them, just because if they play their own Rengar and you clap them back with your Rengar plus buff, then you're you're doing well for yourself. And I'll talk about the sideboard later. There's not much to it. Um, just the extra sabotage, the not so fast for the control matchups. 2 Lucian is interesting, but it was in my Atlanta list, and I didn't want to leave without it because it's just very powerful. I thought it could be good sideboard tech on the draw. I do think Scuttle Crab is a very weak play on the draw, just because it doesn't contest board. So we do typically take out the Scuttle Crabs on the draw and put in the Lucians. And we're also playing Monastery Piranha, so um, just be able to go back and forth and draw a card is just very powerful. Um, then we got the Gear Hate, Disarm Remake and Auction for the gear matchups, like Aurora, Azir, and so forth. And then our extra Aurelia. Yeah, so going into the weekend, and my matchups, I went 8-5 overall. Um, Overall, I'm not really happy with my performance this weekend, just because I had expectations I could do better, and I was very confident in the deck. So 8-5 is pretty disappointing for me. Although I did get the best of, I wish I was able to get my top 64 invite, um, or at least the top 128 Vex mat. But I kind of did poor. I mean, not kind of. I did very poorly in day two, and I'll talk about the matchups. I basically probably could have realistically went X3, and because I had such good break, I think I had good breakers going into day two that I could have ultimately made top 64 if I did go X3. So um, yeah, round one I had a bye. Round two I played a Darius. This player was pretty strong. However, he was pretty nervous just because it was his first RQ. Um, but yeah, I lost on his arena's greatest game, and he falling started me twice. That game wasn't very close. But then game three, just because how fast my deck can generate a bunch of might with like Vanguard and early, I was able to uh, have a pretty easy game three, I think. And then my next round was an Irelia opponent. Um, this Irelia wasn't particularly super strong from what I remember. However, I think he really just was uncomfortable in the matchup, so that was a pretty quick 2-0. And in my next round, I played another Irelia. Um, this match was pretty unfortunate, I think. I think I think I won game one, and then game two I lost on Targons, and then game three um, I lost because well, my opponent had 3 Gust and 3 Defiant that game, um, which was fine. The 2 Gusts like kind of hurt my tempo. I think I was down like 5-1, but the third Gust killed me just because I wasn't playing around it, and basically my punch first on my one might first mate got gusted uh, because he Defiant danced me when I pushed in, and had I buffed my first mate prior to that, I would have been able to play around the third Gust and ultimately discipline over it to not get gusted. And so, yeah, that killed me quite a bit. And then even after that, I think the game was still winnable. I was, you know, my rally opponent was running out of like runes and probably not cards because he did get a second Stella corn, I think. Um, but basically I was stabilizing pretty well. But he just had the third. He had double Defiant on the last push. Um, Even with one Defiant in my hand, it wasn't enough to push over. So basically, he ended the game with like one rune left, and that was just super unfortunate. So um, after that, I played a Garen. Not much to say here. A very nice opponent. He pretty much bricked game game one. He didn't draw Aurora. I also defied his 2 Catalysts, so that was very good for me, and I was able to score quite early, early on with on Star Spring. So um, that was a pretty easy matchup. Game two, he casted Outer like pretty much too late, and or Aurora with Outer Dragon pretty much too late, and I was able to just hold with 2 guys at the battlefield, and he wasn't able to deal with both. So even though he had Elder Dragon, he didn't have Flurry or anything, so I was able to hold and win. Um, my match six was Vex. This was actually a pretty interesting matchup. I actually won in like 22 minutes, and I'll explain why. This matchup is pretty much whoever wins the die roll, I'm pretty sure. Luckily for me, I did. I won the die roll, and I opened Fey Folk with Fey Folk, Nidalee, On Guard in my hand. And then I drew into, I think I mulled one, and I drew into First Mate. So you probably know what's going to happen in this game. I go Fey Folk turn one. I niddly onto Star Spring with my Fae Folk, pulled in his 2-drop, which was Evelyn. Um, oh yeah, before this, I also sabotaged his hand. So I think I kept the sabotage as well in my opening. Um, oh wait, no, okay, I don't think I had on guard, but at least I kept the sabotage in my hand. So I sabotaged him before I played my Nidalee, and I saw a gust. I took the gust. He literally had nothing else after that. I think he'd have Ride the Wind, Starcross, like um, something else, but basically I had nothing else after that. I kill his Evelyn with Nidalee, draw, push back my Fae Folk. I think he draws into Charm, so he plays Vex to base. And then because my Fake Folk is just gonna kill him the next turn after playing Vex, he was forced to charm my Fake Folk to his Ravenbloom Conservatory. So I scored a point on his turn, held the 4, and I had first mate in hand, so I pushed back my Fake Folk and first mated him and into my Nidalee, um, which I buffed to 5 might. So I just killed his Nidalee. He killed my bunny, which is my favorite. Yeah, but after that, it's pretty much just over. You have no units, no draw, and that deck really can't stumble because you want to be just holding for the whole entire game. Um, but yeah, that was pretty unlucky. Game two was also pretty interesting. I was able to win even though he won die roll. I mean not die roll, but being on the play uh, with Star Tip Peak. And he goes Overzealous Fan into Vex on a battlefield. And then I went Lucian and um, I buffed my Lucian and I pushed into his battlefield and I said, uh, I asked if he was going to use his Overzealous Fan trigger and he did. So and then I had first mate in hand, so I first mated my Lucian back and pushed into his Vex. Uh, and at this point, he has a hidden card and a Vex at 4 might. And I said pass because this is a good trade. I would be able to trade with the Vex and get rid of his hidden card. And as long as this is in back off, um, I would be winning this trade. He flips over Evelyn, and then I have punch first in my hand, so I punch first. I kill his entire board, and I hold with Start to Peak because I knew that with 5 runes he wouldn't be able to kill my Lucian. Um, but yeah, it's just pretty much GG after that point after you break the hold, and yeah, that was just unfortunate for the Vex opponent. I just drew the best lines that I could have going first and second in those games. So I was running hot going into my match 7, which was against a Nazir, and this opponent was very good, very nice guy, but unfortunately he ran into 3 punch first this game. I think the third punch first was a little overkill. I didn't really need it, but I did it anyways because I saw perfect information with my Scuttle Crab that I knew I was just gonna blow him out again, and hold the 8. So that was a bit unfortunate for him. And then game 2, I just died to Hall of Legends Azir. That's like my hardest game to win. And then game 3, I'm not particularly sure. I think this was a pretty close match. Um, but ultimately, I think I had like 1 punch first in that game. And I think I sabotaged his hand one time and like took a key spell. I'm not sure. I had to play around like 2 hidden blades. Oh, I remember why I won. He played a BF sword turn 2 and I auctioned it on turn 3. So that pretty much kills the game for him. Um, yeah, basically playing BF sword for development and playing into auction will probably lose you the matchup into any orange green deck. Played auction, so yeah. So that was my winning in. So I was pretty happy going to be able to get into day 2. And then I run into another Irelia in my last match in day 1. Um, this opponent was Goobums. He's a TFT streamer. I actually recognized his name I don't really play TFT that much anymore, but I know he is a good TFT player. I recognize his name and even recognize his voice from stream just because of the TFT lingo. But uh, he was very nice. We had a good game. He was on a pretty interesting Irelia list um, that I wasn't super ready for. Um, However, I do think I got pretty unlucky in this game. Um, just because I think game one I don't think he really drew any cards. He didn't play Stellacorn, but he just had the second Defiant Dance naturally. So I got pretty blown out from the second Defiant Dance, and I just had to go for it with one of my challenges. So that was unfortunate. Um, he still played it very well. Um, um, and I'm not sure what happened in game three from what I remember, but um, yeah, it just felt kind of hard. Oh, actually, I do remember game three. Game three was on his Targon's game, and he stacked the battlefield with the Scuttle Crab and Stellacorn, and I had a crab at base with the buff. And I said, wow, he stacked the battlefield, and I have punch first. I I went for it. I punch first my Scuttle Crab, and he had switcheroo. So I did not think about switcheroo at all. I had to find my hand, and I think something else to interact. So I thought I could win against Double Defiant Dance. Um, but he killed me with switcheroo, which in hindsight I should probably have known that was gonna happen because I also lose to Rebuke in that spot. But it kind of is a worth trade. I'm kind of going up one energy, I guess, kind of. I mean, I'm allowing to use his Targon, so maybe not, but yeah, I basically lost from that. When he switcherooed me. Just kind of blew me out because I just wasn't playing around it. Didn't think about it. Probably should have thought about it more because I was probably fine if I just went to my monastery and just drew. But um, yeah, I just wanted to go for it because I think uh, that game on Targon's game when they opened Stellacorn on Targon's is probably the hardest game. Just because you can't freely challenge or charm their Stellacorn on turn two, so they're gonna get a lot of draw. But um, yeah, just something I just had to go for it. Um, I mean, I guess I didn't have to go for it, but yeah. Uh, Never saw an I really do that, so yeah, learning experience with that. Ultimately, he bubbled out of top eight, so um, it didn't feel too bad playing against a good player, um, or losing to a good player. So, um, and I do feel bad for not performing in my day two to help his breakers make it into top eight. So. Sorry to him for not performing. Um, Going into day two, I played a Fiora. This was ultimately the best of Fiora. This match, I remember it was like pretty much 20 minutes. I got deck checked after, and we kind of laughed about it. But basically, I just had two punch first both games. I don't think he saw punch first game one, and then game two he had one punch first, and I had two, so he punched first uh, after I punched first once, and I punched first again, and just blew him out. So this was uh, he was also on Aurora, which I think he probably could have stabilized game one after his Elder came on, but I just had the Scuttle. I had a Scuttle Crab in base, and then I had first made in hand, so I was able to just double conquer with onto Star Spring and win game one. And then game Oh, and then my next match was against Ali Aldraza on Silver Aurora. Um, he opened Aurora turn three going first, so I don't think that was winnable. But I got some good information on his deck because two Barons literally hit the base or on the board, and that was very surprising to me. So um, I even forgot Baron gave +2 to other units, so I killed off one of my units for free and it just like scooped after that. So um, and then game two, I just abused the Emperor's Dais with my Scuttle Crab just to draw into all my answers for his Auroras and his plays. And then game three, I think I punted pretty hard by just not disarming making his first Aurora. Instead, I auctioned it, and ultimately he was able to just challenge my auction later on in the game and uh, get back his Aurora. And I think if he didn't get that extra Aurora trigger I think he casted Baron after that. I probably would have won because I had Charm in hand, and Charming an Elder Dragon off the base is typically how you close out the game with these colors, and having the Defy for the Flurry is also very important. And I had both, so that is a game I think I should have won. I was pretty disappointed in myself at losing that, but I guess the lights were too bright and I got greedy with the auction. And then my next match was against a Kaisa. I think it's not the best matchup because of Falling Star and Forerunner, but um, yeah, kind of just. I mean, I just didn't draw a turn one play or a turn one unit both games on the play. Um, I said pass turn two against them. I had 4 runes and I said pass, so definitely was gonna win that game. I did misplay. I think it was still winnable, but I was like kind of I just play a much worse when I get tilted. And also at this point I won the best of, so I was kind of playing like you know not as much. There wasn't as much pressure on me, so I didn't play as well that day. Um, yeah, and then game two I missed the turn one play again, and then he forerunners to me twice. So I don't know. Very hard matchup to play into if they draw the forerunners and you stumble. And then my match 12 was against a Victor, which I think I'm favored into. Game one, I just think I just didn't draw into anything that I needed. Game one, which literally anything I draw, like a charm, defy, a punch first, pretty much like anything, I would have been able to close out the game. I tried to hold at 7 into his 6, but he was able to win with a Watcher. Um, yeah. Um, and then game 2, I don't remember too much. I think I won pretty easily. Game 3, I pretty much he was dead on board. I auctioned his Sprite Fountain at 6 points. And brought back like my Rengar to base. So I had a Rengar and auction on base, and I took his Sprout Fountain that he played the previous turn, and then he safety inspectors me to and like he had like some units at a battlefield with some sprites, and he safety inspectors me, and I kill my Rengar or my auction instead of my Rengar. But had I killed my Rengar and um or played another unit, I think I had Nilly in hand, and I would have been tapped out if I played it. So I kept 2 for discipline for some reason, playing around like singularity or some reason. I don't know, but or Bellows Breath Watcher, because I knew he had Watcher at this point in his hand. I had Scuttle Crab, um, so I didn't play my extra unit. So, but had I killed my Rengar and kept the Sprite Fountain, I would have been able to conquer with my Sprite Fountain on my Monastery, or I don't know what battlefield it was. Whatever, the left battlefield, and then punch first my auction to just break the other battlefield. So he was pretty much dead on board with tapped out. So that was pretty disappointing to lose. But uh, yeah, at this point I think I was out of contention for top 64. So I kind of just wanted to end the game in the weekend on a good note. But yeah, that was pretty bad. And then my match 13 was against a Fiora who was competing for the best of Fiora, and he said if he had won, he would have won the best of Fiora, but um, I won the die roll, hit my nut line uh, going first, and I think game two he also got Yeah, I think his final push game 2, he got rune fucked, where he had a Fiora and a BF sword, and he only had one yellow, so he couldn't equip the BF sword and accelerate out. So that was really unfortunate for him. Um, but I was able to 2-0 him pretty easily, and then uh, my first Fiora opponent was able to get the best of because he won his last match. So um, yeah, I did feel bad for denying that, but I wanted to play it out. I didn't want to give him the win or anything like that. He didn't ask for the win or anything, but I made him earn it. It would have been unfair if I gave him the win at all. Um, it would have been unfair to the other Fiora. So um, that was quite unfortunate for him. He was leading the best of Fiora the entire time. So um, yeah, just unfortunate. But yeah, that was my run this weekend. Overall, I'm kind of disappointed just because I think I could have made top 64, but um, still a good run just because I won the best of. Um, I mean, I can't complain too much. So yeah, that's the last run for Lee Sin. So I'll be on something else in the next RQ. I want to talk about the matchups for this deck. This is my opinion on the worst and the best matchups for Lee Sin in the format. I think Bear is probably the worst matchup. It's not super popular, but his dudes are just really big, and he plays Aurora as well, and Aurora is very hard for this deck. So um, not much to be said. Master Yi, same colors, but better legend ability. I think a competent, I think a very good Master Yi. It's pretty unplayable uh, for Lee Sin. I tested into a very good Master Yi player who made top 64 this weekend, and yeah, he made it. He made my deck feel very unplayable. I think I got one game off of him, so that was that's not a good matchup. But I do think against like a weaker opponent, the matchup is not as bad. Just because of Fey Folk, you can do some cheeky things against it. And also Charm and Challenge is pretty key in that matchup. LeBlanc is also a unfavorable matchup that I tested out a lot into. Um, but it's not unwinnable at all. Opening Fey Folk on the play is pretty good. Even on the draw, it's not too bad. Um, but yeah, opening Fey Folk in all the games, you're probably favored. Just because you can kill off their small units and um, lock them out of the game. Basically, try not to let them conquer at all, and then that really slows down the LeBlanc. But if they do play a Rift Herald or start hooking off with their beta hook, the matchup is very hard. The other unfavorable matchups are probably Sivir Aurora and MF. Just any Aurora matchup can be pretty tough for Lee Sin. Um, just because if they do turn 3 Aurora, you're probably dead. If they turn 4 Aurora and you don't have an answer, you're probably dead. So I would say you're pretty unfavored since they're pretty likely to see Aurora. Um, in the even matchups, I would say Diana and Irelia are pretty even. But I would maybe possibly move them to favorable since I do think Orange Green is pretty good into the to the Blur Pearl decks like Diana. But just because of how high the skill ceiling of these decks are, that a very good player should probably not ever lose to a Lee Sin. Um, but I think against maybe average Dianas and Irelias, you're pretty favored just because you're running like punch first and charm and challenges. And Diana's very weak when you're able to kill all their units because they're running very little. Same thing with Irelia. Um, Azir is pretty even. It's pretty fast. I think maybe it's unfavorable since game one is so hard with if they do open Hall of Legends. Um, but I think post sideboard, you know, if you're able to draw your sideboard, like the matchup is pretty good, and Rengar helps with the matchup quite a bit. Um, but yeah, I'm not gonna get into all the matchups, but I didn't test into everything. Um, but this is just my opinion on what I think is favorable. I played like a Lux Infinite one of the days. It's probably not favorable, but maybe against a really good Lux player, it's probably unfavorable. I don't know. They don't really interact with you, and you have to fly for to stop out, like stop their draws. So sabotage as well. So um, yeah, and I don't really have any idea for these. I didn't really test much into these, so um, you'll probably define into these. Um, as for our battlefields, we're playing Monastery Hirana on the draw, Emperor's Dais on the play, and then game one we're playing Star Spring. Um, I think I talked about it a lot. Um, this is our nuttiest line in game one, is where we open Faith Folk, and then Diddley, and then have one of these three cards in our hand, and just charm one of their units in. If they have literally anything, you should be able to beat it with Defy, On Guard, or Punch. Typically not Punch first, but typically On Guard is the best thing. Pretty much nothing beats an On Guard after charming them. The only thing I could really think of is if you like charm in a Raven Bloom and you're playing against Diana and they like double stupefy you and it trades. But no, this line is just very good, and it's just very snowbally. And then also opening like a 2-drop into First Mate to double conquer on Star Spring is also very good. Um, typically you want to be doing this against slower decks like Aurora, so you can start like being on point parity um, every turn. So that's just why we go Star Spring game one. Um, you don't have to go Star Spring if you know they're going Star Spring. So you can save a Star Spring game later on, such as like LeBlanc. You can maybe go Dias into them, knowing that you're not typically going to be. Um, I mean, just wanting multiple Star Spring games. LeBlanc also likes Star Spring, so there's an argument to just play the double Star Spring, but um, you can also do that against Rengar. Um, but I didn't play any event LeBlancs or Rengars this weekend, so no, it didn't really come up. I just went Star Spring game on every game. And then on the draw, I mean, we're bringing our Lucians in, and then we're curving out into our Relia Rengar, and then just getting draws all the time on a Harana. And that's generally not going to help your opponent, so on the draw, it's fine if they get a Harana first. It's like whatever. On the play, we're playing Emperor's Dais. This is just synergizes super well with our 3 units that I've shown here. Typically, if we're opening Scuttle Crab and bouncing it on Dais for free, we're probably winning that game just because of how much draw we're going to be having in the game. I remember one of the games where I went Dais, and then because of the ruling where you can bounce it for free, I was able to play Scuttle Scuttle right after. So I scuttled turn 1, drew, Scuttle Scuttle, drew. My hand was ginormous that game. It's very hard. I think I did that into the Aurora, into Aliodraza. It's probably should be errated, and the rules should be changed for this. I will say if they do change it, you're probably not running these battlefields anymore, and um, you could probably run Sunken Temple or Seed of Power, or maybe even Arena's Greatest. Um, are both all viable options on the play. Yeah, just our turn 1 plays. I think I already talked about it. And in the deck list. But yeah, these are what we want to be seeing. And then our key units, literally Irelia, Rengar, and First Mate. We want to be seeing these turn 2 as soon as turn 2 or 3. Very powerful cards. And then we want to be seeing these early on, just so we can confirm that we're going to be winning combats. And then as for a sideboard, these are what we're running, bringing these in for control matchups. Our Lucian for a Scuttle Crab. So like a typical deck, you would probably take the 3 Scuttle Crabs out for Irelia Lucian. So we're having the best turn 1, turn 2 plays going second. So because we're behind already, we want to be seeing these units. And sometimes I'm bringing Akshan on the play as well, just because sometimes Akshan is better than Irelia on the play because you can actually play this guy turn 2 because you don't have those 5 runes. So uh, he's flexible in that regard. So this sideboard is pretty flexible. I mean, there really isn't a lot of tech here. I would say these are only 4 tech cards. Akshan's kind of a tech card as well. So um, there's not much to think about in the sideboard. I think our main board is just very solid already. As for cards that I considered but I cut, and I tested Viomals. This card is just like very awkward. It also is just super vulnerable to Starcross, and in matchups that I mean, sometimes this card can just win you a few matchups, like against like red yellow decks or even LeBlanc. It's decent into, but even LeBlanc has answers into this card, like Harness Dragon and Hidden Blade. Um, and because we're just playing super aggressive with our deck and expending power, we're typically never getting to 8 and like be able to cast this card and hold up interaction to protect it. So yeah, we cut it. Um, Back off was another card that I considered playing in the main and sideboard. It's a card that's pretty good into like Aurora and LeBlanc, which is one of our harder matchups. But it's just kind of very an awkward card. Uh, Costing 3 is just very expensive in our deck. You kind of just want to hide it, every time you play it. But typically, Zonia's is going to do the same thing if you're casting it early on. The only time you really want to see this card is at the very end of the game for holding. So, because we were so tight on room in our deck, and I'm playing like 3 main board cards in the sideboard, it's very hard. It was just very hard to fit it. And this weekend I didn't really miss it at all. I don't think I really like wow, I missed back off. So okay. And then our you know Fiora Peerless, this card was played in the winning Master Yi deck. I was also considering this card just because of how hard our Master Yi matchup was. Um, I didn't play any Master Yi, but I did play Irelia, and this card is pretty good into Irelia. If they're playing like the typical list with only Stellas and Irelia. Um, so this probably would have been a good option. I wanted to play Lucian instead, but this easily could have probably been the 2 Lucians could have been Fiora Peerless. But I don't think it's as good as into like other matchups like widespread. And this weekend I was bringing in Lucian pretty much every game, every match that I had, and I wouldn't say the same for Fiora. And then honorable mention is Ruin Runner. I hate this card. This card is just like super slow. The reason why Master Yi can run it is because Master Yi just has so much tempo and pressure early on because of his um, legend ability that he can afford to develop a Ruin Runner, and also it's just the Ruin Runner doesn't just instantly die when on the clapback because of the +3/+2 that when it is holding. So this card's just way too slow. I wouldn't put it in my deck. Um, it's a dead card when you draw it as well. So I Rally Fervent's just much better because you can play it on turn 2 going second. And then it just generates more might. So I wouldn't run Ruin Runner. Orange decks need to stop running this card. The only card I would only time I would consider bringing this in is like into like maybe Diana or Ezreal, just because it's very hard for them to interact with it. So just specifically purple blue decks, it's pretty good. But even against like things like Kaisa, I really don't like this card. This card just gets ran over by so many things that like Kaisa runs. So yep. But yeah, that's it. That's it for the video. Um, I know last time I did a more high production deck profile, um, but that high production like kind of made me nervous, and I didn't really want to do a script, so I kind of just winged it here and just made some slides. So if you like this content, give this video a like, comment on what you would like to see next from the channel. I know Lee Sin is rotating out, but I know there's a few more months left to play him for a best of in like the smaller tournaments like Pittsburgh and Dallas. So if you want to be bringing these, if you want to bring Lisa into like your local skirmishes or these, smaller tournaments, um, regional tournaments or whatever, um, I highly recommend playing this deck. It's super fun. I'm very happy with the list. I think you could make a few small adjustments according to your locals or whatever preferences that you make for matchups. Um, but yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next video.